Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Round Table. I'm your host, Ben Hedges, and as always, I'm here with the lovely Holly Kellum. Welcome to the show, Holly.
Good to be here, Ben.
And today I wanted to talk about this Olympics so-called Last Supper fiasco. So I don't know, you've probably already heard about it, because if you hadn't heard about it, you've probably been living under a rock for the past week or so. But let's, we can refresh ourselves with a little bit of footage from this. So basically, we have all these people arranged as if it's the Last Supper, the Leonardo da Vinci painting. And then we have this guy, this blue guy, who comes out of a plate of food, well, you're going to find out who he is in a moment. But, this is causing some outcry from people. So we have a tweet by the leader of the House, Mike Johnson, who is, taking a dim view of it. He thinks it's offensive to Christians. And then the French Bishops' Conference of Catholic Bishops, they actually made a statement. The ceremony is unfortunately included scenes of mockery and derision of Christianity, which we deeply regret. We'd like to thank members of other religious denominations who've expressed solidarity with us. However, was it actually supposed to be the Last Supper? What do you think?
Well, I don't remember a blue guy coming out of a plate of food at the Last Supper, so I'm gonna say there could be some other interpretations. But okay. I think what it is actually this thing that looks like a table. I believe it's a runway or like a catwalk, right?
That was the runway where the bearded woman was
Well,
dancing.
there was a whole fashion show, and I was watching NBC's coverage of this, and it was talking about how fashion is such an indelible part of French culture and the beautiful people, and as they're saying that, this guy with a pot belly is walking down the catwalk in this really uninteresting ugly clothing.
Yes. Yeah, it was a fashion show. So here's what the official Olympic account on Twitter tweeted, or on X. The interpretation, so it's not supposed to be the Last Supper. They say that the blue guy is supposed to be the Greek god Dionysus.
Oh, Dionysus.
Dionysus, excuse me. Yeah, Dionysus. And it's actually based on a different painting, okay? And so here's Whoopi Goldberg talking about that.
There was instant controversy over an opening number featuring drag performers that some people said was a blasphemous take on Da Vinci's painting, The Last Supper. The guy who actually put it all together said it was from the Feast of the Gods, which is a 17th century Dutch painting of the Greek Olympian gods, the Olympian gods, because it's the Olympics.
I think that's funny, right? The Olympian gods, because it's the Olympics. Okay, yeah.
Makes sense.
So she says, and apparently the guy, there were a lot of interviews with him. Many of them were in French, so I wasn't able to actually sift through all the interviews. But somewhere in one of the interviews, Thomas Jolly, the guy who actually designed the whole thing, the producer or whatever, artistic director, he says it's based on this painting that we'll put on screen now, which is the Feast of the Gods. It's by a Dutch artist called Jan van Bilgert, and it's from 1635. The funny thing is, though, that actually the lady in the middle, Barbara Butch, the sort of obese lady, she actually posted on Instagram this, and she called it, oh yes, the Gay Testament. And that is actually her account. You can see her handle up there. And she's comparing it to the Last Supper. So even if it's not supposed to be the Last Supper as per the director, the people actually in it, the rather butch lady, who is coincidentally called Barbara Butch, you can't make this stuff up, she is saying publicly that she is comparing it to the Last Supper. But anyway, let's go back to talking about the gods. So Barbara Butch, she's actually supposedly playing Apollo, which you can see by the halo, and you can see in the original painting, Apollo has a halo. That in itself could be taken as offensive, because obviously they've changed the gender of Apollo. Apollo is a male god. They've changed it to an obese woman. which is rather strange. And then we've got, how do you say the name? Dionysus or Dionysus? Dionysus. Okay, so then we've got Dionysus with the grapes, who for some reason now is part of the Blue Man Group. So, right?
Yes, they're what, fourth band member?
Right. Why did they change him blue? I do not understand that part.
I think he is portrayed as blue in mythical.
Oh, really?
In
Well,
the
not in that
stories.
particular painting, though.
Oh, okay.
The painting they're supposedly mimicking, it isn't. And then you have this other guy, the woman with the beard. Okay, so the bearded woman. He is in. It's actually a man, but he's in the Last Supper or the Feast of the Gods. And then previously he did a sort of dance, a very sexually suggestive dance, which is a little bit in poor taste because there's kids watching and stuff. He's actually called Mike Gautier, which
very appropriate.
You think of, right. His goatee, right? If you look at his Instagram, it's all like him with a beard, dressed up in women's clothes, looking like a woman with a beard. It's just rather weird. And then we got this other guy who allegedly had his testicle hanging out, which this has been disproven, okay, guys? This is,
Could it get worse?
No, this one's been disproven. So it wasn't actually his testicle, it was a hole in his tights. And you can see that actually later on in the performance, the hole got bigger. So it was just a hole in his tights at that exact position to make it look like it was hanging out of his...
Man, talk about a wardrobe malfunction.
Right, yeah. And so, you have all these kind of slightly strange characters. I mean, I kind of think it's really not appropriate for kids to be watching this.
Yeah. I mean, when I first saw the picture, I did think, the Olympics is supposed to be this kind of, catering to the general public. And something like this, it's pushing the envelope, I would say.
Right. It's not really mainstream. You would expect something like this to be on a sort of edgy comedy club or cabaret show or something like that.
Right.
It's really not mainstream. Basically, full stop, drag queens are not mainstream. This is something that, adults go and see at certain comedy clubs or...
Although I understand there's a show called RuPaul's Drag Race. I don't know if this is...
That's a TV show, isn't it? It's a TV show?
I think
it's like competition? Something like... like America's Got Talent, but for drag queens or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. So maybe it's becoming mainstream.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I hope not, because I don't think it's something that's really super appropriate for children, And to have a man with a beard, it's kind of messing up kids' perception of what is a woman, what is a man. It's a little bit strange. I feel like you gotta go through your young years and your teenage years first, and then when you grow up, you can look at these things, and these things should be in an area where it's not accessible easily to people who are like under 18. You know what I mean? Like it should be something like, if you want to seek it out when you're older, go ahead. We live in the West. We live in freedom. You can do what you want. But I kind of feel it shouldn't be just
the
out
Olympics.
There. Right, in the openings.
It's such a public, Yeah, I mean, I think there's obviously how they're dressed, but then you were talking about the very sexually suggestive dance that guy was doing, and I do think that pushes it too far. If they're just there, in the background, I think it's one thing, but when you have them like out front center, doing such a suggestive dance, I do think that it's not appropriate for children.
Now, so they claim that it wasn't supposed to be the Last Supper, but I think they should have known really that the parallels would be made.
This was my question: is like, did they say, this wasn't the Last Supper, but wink, wink, nod, nod, like we're kind of playing to what we know people will see this as, and like trying to push the envelope in that way too.
The crazy thing is, though, this isn't the first time this has been done in Europe by one of these major organizations. So there is a photo that was displayed in the European Parliament, and it's a 1998 photographic version of the biblical story. We'll put it on screen now. It was created by Swedish lesbian photographer Elisabeth Olsson, and it caused outcry when it was exhibited at the 2023 plenary session of the European Union Parliament in Brussels, Belgium. It's basic. Now, this one really is supposed to be the Last Supper, and you've got Jesus wearing high heels, and you've got a guy there on the right dressed in something that we can't really show. I think we're going to blur it a bit. And it's just, it's a sort of gay version of the Last Supper. And so that's the strange thing, is that they've done this before. This has been done before in Europe by a major international organization, the European Union, and now it's being done by another major international organization, or something that appears similar is being done by the Olympics in Europe. So it's a little bit too much of a coincidence for me to think that like this isn't intentional.
Well, I have no love for the Olympic International Committee. I just feel like they are so corrupt and so compromised. You know, what was it, like last year, 2 years ago, they held the Olympics in China, you know, despite...
Oh, the Winter Olympics?
The Winter Olympics, you know, despite, you know, the genocide and all the human rights issues. And it just feels like they have absolutely no bottom line.
Do you remember
know?
the snowboarding competition right next to a nuclear power station that the Chinese actually thought made them look good?
Yeah.
It's only communist countries that do that, right? What is it? The Borat, the Kazakhstan national anthem, talking about the their exports of potassium and how many factories they've got and stuff. Like, it's only communist countries that think they need to showcase their industry for that.
That's very important to them. Yeah.
So, you know, they have nuclear power stations. We have drag queens in the West now.
That is our nuclear power, apparently.
Anyway, guys, what do you think about all of this? Do you think it's appropriate, or do you think it's nothing to worry about? All opinions welcome. Do leave your comments below. And make sure to follow Holly's channel, Newspeak. Her icon for her channel will be on screen now. And subscribe to us here at The Round Table for more videos like this. We'll see you next time.